Next few minutes, we're now joined, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak, David Teel. We've had David on a handful of times, the Richmond Times-Dispatch. David, where is, if you would say, the Cal-Stanford meter when it comes to the ACC? If it was a little higher earlier in the week, if at all, is it a much lower or flattened out?
I wouldn't say it's flattened out, David. As one athletic director said to me recently, at the beginning of the week, I would have told you no way. Now I would tell you strong maybe.
What would have changed between now and then? Is this really just come down to money?
Oh, everything in college athletics these days, at least at the FBS level, comes down to money, without question. But I think there's some negotiating going on. I also believe there's some lobbying going on among ACC presidents, some of whom clearly are in favor of this, others opposed, and I am almost certain that those in favor are on the phone with those who are opposed saying, hey, let's try to figure out a compromise here and get this done.
Yeah, it's almost like in Congress, the blue states and the red states, and who's trying to cross the aisle to get something passed. So if you were to say, if I mention Florida State, if I mention Clemson, and if I mention Miami, would those three be a rock-solid no?
I can't say for sure about Miami. My suspicion would be that Florida State and Clemson would oppose this move. So for a couple of different reasons. I don't think this moves the needle enough financially to suit them because there's just too many unknowns, especially in regards to the ACC's future success initiative, which is an uneven revenue distribution. How much will Clemson and Florida State benefit from that? That formula is TBA. So I think there's just too many unknowns for the Tigers and Seminoles to be all on board with Cal and Stanford.
On that front of Florida State and Clemson, does anybody get any kind of glimpse of what, especially Florida State's plan would be in all this? Do they just want to, like pull the finger out of the dam and hope that it leaks enough to flood? Because contracts are cut. Like it just seems like now it's a lot of noise, and that they hope they maybe fall into a legal strategy.
Maybe they will. As Sportico reported last week that Florida State has engaged with a private equity firm to look at some athletic department financing that way, perhaps with an eye toward buying its way out of the grant of rights. That's a lot of money, guys. If Florida State were held to the letter of that contract and tried to leave the ACC in the present time, you're looking at well north of $500 million.
Are they now the team that everybody, or maybe the rest of the schools, other than maybe Clemson or Miami or North Carolina, whoever's on this one block of no, or we want unequal revenue sharing, or we're better? Are they now like the guy that walks in the room and everybody doesn't like him?
Oh, absolutely. that was the case at the spring meetings back in May when Florida State, leaked word of the Seminoles and 6 other schools kind of looking around with their lawyers at the grant of rights and what are our options here. And there were some very loud conversations there. And Florida State certainly didn't make itself any friends with last week's dog and pony show with its board of trustees, and its president threatening to leave the league if they didn't get their way, because by golly, we deserve the greater share of revenue. Never mind the fact, guys, that Florida State's own athletic director back in January told Ira Schofel of warchant.com down there in Tallahassee that Florida State over the previous decade ranked last in the ACC in terms of football investment. That's not an ACC problem. That's a U problem. And so essentially what Florida State is saying is we've squandered what money the ACC has given us, but now we want the ACC to give us more. That's not the way the world works.
This is going to be fun, David, because I'm an SFA, Stephen F. Austin, the Stanford of the South graduate. Paul's an FSU guy, so
this is all not news to me. They've made this big push of how they've spent all this money, but it's just been recently.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, and they were operating with a de facto AD and a de facto booster club president for a very long time, and
yep.
There was not anybody who wanted it. And so they're reaping what they sowed when they made those decisions right now. And this is all noise. Look, I would love for them to make a bunch of money, but I would like them to do that in a common sense fashion that would make sense that other than, yeah, look, you're a great brand. You deserve to make a bunch of money if you're still, if you're investing in it. But let's not pretend like you didn't pretend like the athletic department didn't exist for a decade. I mean, that's was the complaints my friends and I had all the time.
Yeah. And by the way, let's also not forget that since Jameis Winston left the program, Florida State is 32-32 in the ACC over the last 8 seasons. It has lost 3 straight to Wake Forest. It has lost 7 straight to Clemson. It has lost 5 of the last 6 to NC State. So again, your demands for more money, your public demands, man, they ring just a little bit hollow. I understand Florida's going to make a lot more money. I understand your concern. I understand that you won 3 national championships since joining the ACC. Those are all very valid points. But there has to be a little self-awareness involved.
Yeah, I also think that we're kind of hoping Clemson was going to join them out there on the front line, and Clemson's just letting them take the bullets right now. Mm-hmm. David, where does this leave schools like Virginia Tech, who, look, they've had a rough last few years since Frank Beamer left, but that's a legacy ACC program, and they're great. Duke, who. Football, is on an uptick now, but it's never been something they really cared about enough for the long term. Syracuse, Pitt, these are good athletic departments for the most part. Why? Where does it leave them if the conference continues to shake up?
Well, I don't know that the conference as a whole will shake up because of that grant of rights. And because it extends through 2036 for 13 more years. Now, in 13 more years, what does the future like? I'll probably be in the nursing home and unaware of anything that's going on, and that'll be fine. But I think for now, the membership, absent Florida State and ACC are headed for a divorce. The only question is when and how and who's going to pay and how much. But the rest of the league, we'll see.
Why is August 15th the date I heard that they have to make a decision?
August 15th is the date they have to make a decision or inform the league of their intention to leave at the end of the 23-24 academic year.
Okay. That has nothing to do with the grant of rights because we know that's 35 years from now. Yeah, this sounds like August 15th could be one hell of a day. August 15th, if in fact that happens, would be right there and maybe a notch above all hell breaking loose, David, on August the 4th on Friday with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the in the Big 12.
Yeah, that was a sad day, guys. for those of us of a certain vintage who remember the Pac-12, the Pac-10, the Pac-8 in its heyday, and it earned the moniker Conference of Champions because that league produced literally hundreds of national champions. I was looking at the numbers earlier today. Stanford alone in the last 10 years has won 30 national championships. I mean, it's just remarkable. And, you talk about Southern California's football heritage and UCLA's unmatched men's basketball heritage, Stanford women's basketball. You can go down the line. And to think that there are only 4 schools, as we speak, still standing in Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State. History will not treat last Friday very kindly.
No, nor should it. I mean,
no.
Yeah, because it was brought about by hubris and just a lack of grasp of reality, and then money grabs. All things that are not necessarily good.
None of it flattering.
No. David, do you think that there's regret within not just the FSU part of the league? I mean, we know they regret signing a 50-year contract, but do you think there's a little bit of regret among the other schools that they are not going to be able to go to market with their television contract before everybody else goes twice?
I think there probably is a little buyer's remorse. But, guys, there was an awful lot of enthusiasm for that deal, for that 20-year deal back in 2016, because it guaranteed them the ACC network. And let's also remember that when the SEC and ESPN got together and created the SEC network, that, too, was an original 20-year contract. So it's not like the ESPN took advantage of the ACC and demanded something that was unprecedented. No, this is exactly what the network did with the Southeastern Conference. And without that grant of rights, might the league have already splintered? Perhaps. But let's also remember or ask the question, where would these schools go? How much more would they bring to a Big Ten or an SEC? Yeah, I'm not convinced Florida State has another league to go to.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like,
it's not like everyone would like them, but
I mean, I think Florida State and Clemson. And here's an interesting thing: they've won in the ACC recruiting SEC players when they've won national championships. I don't think this is kind of similar to where A&M had to swallow the pill on getting Texas in the league. I don't think that the schools that have regularly recruited against Florida State and Clemson want them in the league swimming in those waters with those funds. I think it's more than just one rival school here and there. I think there's probably a pocket of they're like, well, I don't know if we really want to do that.
Exactly. And plus, guys, if you're Clemson or Florida State and you look at the future of college football and the expanded playoff, isn't your path to that playoff, which will define your relevancy, just like the NCAA tournament defines men's basketball relevancy, isn't your easiest path, your clearest path to that playoff through the ACC? Do you really want to jump in a league with Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama? Am I missing it? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
David, I know you got the ACC network thing coming up in about 15 minutes. I told you we'd try to get you out of here in 15, and I think we did. We appreciate your time. Good luck covering this as we move forward, including maybe even, August 15th, just in 4 days from now, to see what might happen with Florida State. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's just hope nothing tonight or over the weekend so we can all relax.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Absolutely.
I said that for 13 months after USC and UCLA left the Pac-12, and it literally took 13 months or so, 14 months to get that done. All right, it is